U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump is guilty of falsifying financial records to hide a payment to an adult film star to influence the outcome of the 2016 election. Tina Trin reports from New York.
Guilty on all 34 counts. That's what a unanimous New York jury decided after less than 2 days of deliberation. That Donald Trump, the first U.S. president tried in a criminal court, falsified business records to suppress potentially damaging information ahead of his 2016 election. After hearing the verdict, the presumed 2024 Republican presidential candidate left the courthouse, saying voters will decide his fate on Election Day.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people.
But those voters may not include Trump himself, says University of Virginia professor Barbara Perry.
It would be the case that if he maintains his residency in Florida, a state where convicted felons are not allowed to vote, that he literally would not be allowed to vote for himself.
President Joe Biden's re-election campaign released a statement saying, "In New York today, we saw that no one is above the law." Former federal prosecutor and New York Law School professor Steve Cohen was not surprised by the verdict.
The legal reality is either you believe in the jury system or you don't. And I happen to believe in the jury system. The case was tried. It was tried carefully, at times almost meticulously. It doesn't mean there won't be issues on appeal. There always are issues on appeal. It doesn't mean that there won't be surprises to come.
22 witnesses testified in the 6-week trial, including a tabloid newspaper editor who described suppressing stories critical of Trump. Adult film star Stormy Daniels, who said she was paid to keep quiet about a sexual encounter with Trump that he denies. And former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, who said he made those payments to Daniels on Trump's behalf. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg said the jury made its decision based on the evidence in the law.
While this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law, and doing so without fear or favor.
Trump's sentencing is scheduled for July 11th, just days before the Republican Party is expected to formally nominate him as its presidential candidate at a party convention in the Midwestern state of Wisconsin. Tina Trin, VOA News, New York.
Chris, we have historic developments in U.S. politics and the race for the presidency itself. First of all, we have the sentencing of Donald Trump set for July 11, just days before the Republican Party is set to pick him as the 2024 nominee, where there's a possibility of him getting 4 years in jail time in each of these 34 felony counts, or possibly getting into a probation setup. What do you think the outcome of all of this will be? Will this catapult a martyred Donald Trump well into the forefront of the race, with more independents or fence-sitters towards voting for the GOP ticket in November? Or do you think this might move the needle towards non-MAGA Republicans and independents going for Joe Biden to ultimately set him up for a victory?
Well, first, let's take a look at the effects on the campaigns, both of the campaigns. In an exclusive interview that aired Sunday on Fox News Channel, Trump weighed in on the possibility of being sentenced to jail or house arrest on July 11th. He said, "I don't know that the public would stand it. I'm not sure the public would stand for it." The Biden campaign subsequently posted the clip of the interview on X with a caption, "Convicted felon Trump suggests there will be violence if he's put under house arrest." So already we're seeing some of the battle lines drawn in the campaign with this conviction in Donald Trump's hush money case. Now, about half of Americans believe former President Trump should end his campaign, describing his guilty verdict as correct, according to a new ABC News Ipsos poll published just on Sunday. Exactly 50%, one half polled, said Trump's guilty verdict was the correct decision by the New York jury, and 49% said Trump should immediately drop out of the presidential race. But this poll was really along party lines. Just 18% of Republicans agreed with the guilty verdict, while 83% of Democrats agreed, according to the poll. Now, Among independents, which is a critical voting bloc, 52% said they agree with the guilty verdict. But of course, it comes down to those several battleground states and how the independents there feel and whether that will affect their vote, because we're not seeing that it's affecting the actual polling in the race so far. But we'll have to see that as the weeks move on and the months move on as we go to November.
Great thoughts to think about. The weaponization of the justice system. These are just some phrases that we've heard being thrown around. Some have said that the timing of the conviction of Trump might seem to have time to curtail his political mobility and also diminish his popularity. In certain countries, if a convicted politician wins any election, everything is pardoned. Would you have any idea if this also follows suit in the U.S.? And would there be any specific laws that would also allow Donald Trump to continue should he be convicted?
Well, there is nothing in federal law that prevents Trump from running for president despite this felony conviction. So his campaign is going to continue, and his daughter-in-law, who is the head of the Republican National Committee, actually said that he would do virtual events if he was sentenced to home confinement, for example. So there's really nothing in federal law that prevents him from running, and we've seen that candidates have run for president while in prison, such as Eugene V. Debs going back to the early 1900s, and Lyndon LaRouche, who was a minor candidate, in the 70s and 80s, who ran for president while in prison for various convictions that were mainly tax related. So there is precedent here, but there isn't really precedent when it's involving a frontrunner and a major party candidate like Donald Trump.
Okay. A lot have also criticized Donald Trump's stranglehold on the Republican Party. Some have even said that this could well be defined as a cult. Many have criticized that he lies constantly, never admits he's wrong or apologizes, and also blames others for his discrepancies. Thus, there have also been many saying that he has become more authoritarian and outrageous. Yet, there have been observations that just about every lawmaker in the GOP follows his lead. So, many of us have also wondered, will this come to an end and how? And will the MAGA faction of the GOP hold sway or survive once perhaps Donald Trump's political career is over? And will there be a purging and the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan resurrected? These are just some thoughts that we'd like to, hear your sway about.
Well, first of all, it's important to know that it's not uncommon for members of a party to unite around its candidate before the nominating conventions in the summer. This happened with Bill Clinton back in the 90s when he was impeached but not convicted by the Senate. His party rallied around him and he won re-election in 1996 very handily. And almost to a person, the Republicans in Congress who have spoken out have provided a singular voice for Trump. Speaker Mike Johnson on Fox News amplified Trump's claims without evidence that Democrats are trying to hurt Trump. Johnson said he thinks the Supreme Court, which has a conservative majority, should step in to resolve the case. And outgoing Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who is not running for re-election, said he expected Trump would win the hush money case on appeal, but the three senators looking to replace him echoed Trump's with stronger criticisms of the judicial system. And there are some Republicans who have expressed doubts about Trump's innocence or political viability, including his hawkish former national security advisor John Bolton and top-tier Senate candidate Larry Hogan in Maryland, which is really nearby here in D.C. But they were bullied by the former president's top enforcers and told to leave the party. So, we're seeing that the Republican Party, at least those who are holding office, are really closing ranks around Trump.
Thank you very much, Chris Cascaya, reporting live from Washington, D.C. It seems the November polls hangs in a balance. Thank you very much.